Well, hello everyone and welcome to the P. Carroll Sport podcast. Paul Carroll here, looking back on the National Hurling League final. That was a disappointing result for Tipperary, no doubt. 324 to 23 points was the full-time score. Over the course of the next half an hour or so, I'm going to go down through the game, give my thoughts on the Tipperary performance, where we kind of are after the National Hurling League, what we've learned, and we'll be looking ahead to the Tipperary against Limerick match. I'll also give my prediction for the team that will start that day, and we'll just have a general chat about a couple of other topics in the world of hurling, particularly around VAR in hurling, that it's a kind of a conversation that has been picked up in the last couple of weeks, and I'll give my thoughts on it. But where else to start only with that? Really disappointing defeat for Tipperary down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh yesterday, 324 to 23 points in front of 43,243 people to be exact. But yeah, how do I feel about this game? It's the goals really that was the main difference, wasn't it? 3 goals in about 10 minutes in that second half, or in that second half of the first half, so the second quarter of the game. One for Alan Connolly, one for Darragh Fitzgibbon, and one for Ethan Toomey. I'm looking at my sheet here that I had while I was commentating on Tip FM yesterday. But yeah, God, it was just disappointing, because that was the fear going down, was that it was going to be something similar to what we saw in the Munster Senior Hurling Championship last year, and that was the fear, because Cork can do that. Coming into the game, they had 6 goals in Ennis against Clare, they had 4 in Páirc Uí Chaoimh against Galway, so that was a worry. But Tipperary had a good league, up to that date. They beat Cork in the league as well, so there was a lot to like about Tipperary going down, but you always had that fear. And I think, speaking to Tipperary people in the lead up to the game, that wasn't just me or anyone. That was kind of a feeling that if we can just get out of here with a bit of momentum going into the Munster Championship, we'd be happy. But life isn't always that simple, so that's not how it happened. So we've a bit to talk through with regards to that match yesterday. But let's get straight into it. Tipperary actually started the game fine. The first 20 minutes, I think on the 20-minute mark, it was 10-8 to Cork. Tip were given just about as good as they got, but the only fear was a couple of balls had gone into that Cork full forward line that had you thinking, that's dangerous. A couple of balls went in there to Alan Connolly, and he had Greengrass in front of him, Patrick Horgan as well, Brian Hayes on a number of times. Just there was so much space in front of that Cork full forward line, really exposed the Tipperary full back line. And what I mean by exposed is that they were left open, that there was lovely ball coming in on the lovely side down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. So it was always a worry for Tipperary, even in the early exchanges, that, God, if Alan Connolly gets this and just breaks through the tackle of Owen Connolly or whatever, it could be a goal. And that was pretty much the first goal. Lovely one bounce into the hand of Alan Connolly. He was out in front of Owen Connolly, took him on, kind of turned the corner, sidestep past Robert Doyle, who was watching his man, who had to keep an eye on his man, and just drilled it low past Barry Hogan. That was the first goal. But I think the other 2 goals were preventable from a Tipperary point of view. The second one was the Darragh Fitzgibbon one. Tim O'Mahony just hits a ball under pressure down on top of the Tipperary D, and Ronan Maher is there, 2 of the other defenders are there, and it's 2v3, the 3 being with Tipperary, and they're just kind of, no one can get the ball in their hand. They're trying to get it off the ground. It's a scrap for possession, and in that, the Tipperary defenders just get kind of pulled out of position, and it pops off to Brian Hayes, who had dropped his hurley, had time to pick it back up and get back into the ruck, won the ball, one hand pass in over the top to Darragh Fitzgibbon, and it's into the back of the net. And it's kind of like, it can't be that easy, that it's just on the edge of the Tipperary D, the ball is won and they're in. There should have been more. It was just the positioning, I think, of the Tip defenders wasn't ideal in that scenario. The third goal then, Joe Caesar, who's looked really comfortable throughout this league campaign, got the ball, ran down from a sharp puck out, and ran down the sideline, and just tried to give a pass in the field to Owen Connolly. If it was into the hand, it might have been on, but it was just over Owen Connolly's head, and he had to try and touch that down, and he was under pressure, and the ball was flicked away from him straight away. Ethan Toomey gets it, he's in, and he just buries it. In fairness to him, class finish into the top corner. Nothing Barry Hogan really could do, because it was just inside the post. And those were the 3 goals, and all of a sudden it goes from being a 2-3 point game to literally a 12-13 point game, and at half time it was 3-16 to 12. So God, at halftime you're thinking, what is going to happen here in this second half? Unfortunately, I think I think the second half to a degree was played with both teams eyeing 2 weeks' time in the Munster Championship, because the atmosphere even kind of went out of the game. Tip stayed at it. They made a couple of substitutions. We'll talk about those in the next few minutes. But the second half, you can't really take too much from it. The second half on its own finished, 11 points to 8 in favour of Tip. But, you know, Tip, in fairness to him, and I will say this, it wasn't the same as last year against Cork in terms of Tip stayed at it in the second half. I didn't see anyone kind of throwing the towel in. That was something that was thrown at the players last year. I don't think they did that. I think the game was probably played at a tempo in the second half, with both sets of players probably thinking, you know, let's just get to 2 weeks' time. So when I was driving out of the car park, I said, you know, one of the positives for Tipperary is they got through the game without any injuries that I saw anyway. So that was the main thing. Overall, arching view, disappointing, really disappointing to lose in that manner. But for Cork, they're the much better team on the day. They're such a threat. They can punish you from all around the field in terms of their pace and their ball playing ability. So there's nothing you can really say there. But I don't think Tip played to their strengths, and we'll talk through a couple of things. Like, I thought our puckouts really broke down in that first half against the wind. You know, Barry was trying to find someone who was able to win him, and no one in that half forward line was able to win clean possession. Apart from Jake Morris, he won a couple of really difficult balls, and I thought Jake actually did pretty well yesterday. In fairness to him, he finished up with 3 points, and he was going the whole game. And in fairness to him, won some of those real dirty balls with a lad on his back, kind of had to come down with it, and he did come down with a few of them. But apart from that, we didn't really have many ball winners from these puckouts to just kind of bail Barry Hogan out. That's what every team, you know, Cork have those options down the field where they can just lump it down and break it off Brian Hayes or Alan Connolly and just see what happens. We didn't really get much of that yesterday for Tipperary. And then going short, we didn't get too much joy in those middle of the field. Now, the sun was, I don't want to sound like Ty in Arsenal Fan TV and be like, it's been raining, but like the sun was in the eyes of the players. So that made it hard for those drilled puckouts that we see Barry Hogan do, to, like, you know, Willie Connors in the middle of the field, or Craig Morgan. We've seen Grode O'Connor come short for a couple of, and Alan Tynan as well. So we didn't see much of that. So look, that's definitely something that Tip will have to figure out come the next day. Another thing that Tip will have, like, I thought some of the times they did go long as well, it was right down on top of Robert Downey, and you know, he's a mountain of a man when you see him togged out, and he's real athletic, and you know, you just can't be lumping down a ball down on top of him. It's not going to end well for you. But you would be asking for more out of the likes of Grode O'Connor under those high balls, and Grode, in fairness to him, usually is pretty good under those, but just couldn't get it going yesterday. And neither really could Alan Tynan on the other side, albeit he did get a point and had a few opportunities as well for other points that he'll be disappointed that he hit wide. But yeah, all in all, I think our puck-out strategy on both sides. Now, there's been a lot of talk about Tip sitting off the Cork puck-out, and you know, I kind of sit back and think, well, why are we doing that? Like it's something I don't like to see is, you know, Patrick Collins flick a puck out to the fullback, Owen Downey, back to Patrick Collins, and he's essentially taking the puck out from, you know, 4 or 5 yards outside his 21, because Tip are just letting him hit it to the corner back. Now, a few occasions they did that, and Patrick Collins, you know, got the 1-2 and lumped it down, and Tip did have bodies back. But you know, if Tip are doing that, like, I suppose the reasoning for it is to crowd out the other end of the field and don't leave the space in front of the full forward line, because, as I said, we saw a lot of that, particularly in the first half. Just that space in front of the Tip full back line where it's impossible to defend if you're in the full back line in that situation, or it's impossible to, you know, be right up on your man and get out in front of him, because you've no protection. If the ball goes in behind, then you're gone. And the speed of these Cork attackers, you just can't let that happen. So Tip are dropping off the puck out, hoping to have bodies back down the field to crowd out that area. But how many times did we see Tip drop off the puck out and still the ball was pinged to Tim O'Mahony in the middle of the field, or whoever, Shane Barrett dropping short, or you know, Ethan Toomey got onto a couple of them. You know, it's one or the other. If you're dropping off and letting them hit to the cornerbacks or fullback, make sure that that's the only person they can hit to, you know. So that was a malfunction there from Tipperary. And yeah, so that was disappointing. I never really liked to see the drop off the puck out in my head. And I'm sure if Liam Cowell was sitting here beside me, he'd give his take, and obviously knows way more about coaching teams and the game of hurling in general than I do. You know, it has to be one or the other. You know, drop back, let them hit it short, and then weave the bodies back. But you can't drop back and then they find a free man in the middle of the field. So that's just something that kind of malfunctioned yesterday. And you know, I do like to see it pushed up and forcing the other team's goalie to hit it long or find someone on the run. Much harder things to do. But look, this is. I don't want to be the tip lad on the day after losing a hurling league final saying league is league, but you know, at the end of the day, it's the championship that will ultimately count, and it's the championship that I think Liam Cahill and his team will ultimately be judged on, and every team in Munster will be judged on, is the championship. And yeah, there's the narrative always thrown out that, oh, Liam Cahill's teams are ready for the league or whatever, but then come championship. And Liam is aware of that. He's said that in interviews that that's what he'll be judged on. But it's kind of a lazy narrative that's thrown out now after Tip being beat by the best team in the country who rattled off 3 goals in quick succession. Do you know, let's just see what happens. And you know, Tip have improved. Like, there's no two ways about it. It's not the same as last year. And why I say that is, coming out of Portlaoise last year when Tip lost to Clare, there was a feeling that the arse had fallen out of it, that Tip weren't up to scratch at all, and that all momentum had been lost. And if you look back on last year, Tip's league campaign, albeit we got to a league semi-final, but we didn't have wins over, you know, the top teams really. I thought, off the top of my head, we bet Galway, and I'm trying to think who else. What might we have beaten? Did we beat Waterford, or was that a draw? I can't think looking back. But you know, we were playing Antrim, and did we play Westmeath last year? And no disrespect to those teams, but you know, beating those teams, Tip will be expected to win. But in this year's league campaign, you know, we had a good performance against Limerick, we had a brilliant performance against Galway, good performance against Cork, Clare, you know, Kilkenny. It's a much better and it's a much more settled team. The team in general is in a better place coming out of Páirc Uí Chaoimh yesterday than it was coming out of Portlaoise on Sunday, because that game, we didn't have anyone who could hit a free over the bar last year in that game. We didn't know what the team was going to be from 1 to 15. And there was a feeling that the fight wasn't there. I think those are 3 things that I don't feel, anyway, coming out of Páirc Uí Chaoimh yesterday. I know for a good 12 of the players that will probably start against Limerick, you know, we have that kind of settled look to our team. That's one thing. The players never gave up, you know, which is the base minimum, but in a few occasions last year that was questioned. I think this year it's in a much better place. And Darren McCarthy, in fairness to him, has been knocking over the frees. So if those are the 3 points I'm making. So I think it's a much better place than we were last year. And the improvements have been clear to see for me. So, you know, I think we're in a better place. So let's roll back. Let's look at what we usually do on this podcast. We look down through the individual players and I give my thoughts. So we'll start with Barry Hogan in goals. Could he have saved any of the goals? If he did save any of the goals, it would have been a great save. You know, he was second favourite, I think, to all those. The last one, you know, it's at the side he's diving, but it was right in the corner. And in fairness to Ethan Toomey, that was a great finish. The other 2, they're just ones you're kind of hoping they hit you. You know, as a goalkeeper, you know, rushing out, you're just hoping that you can spread your body as much as you can and the ball hits you. That didn't happen. His puck outs, like, he did pick off 1 or 2 brilliant puck outs. I'm trying to think. Sam O'Farrell over on the north stand side. So if you were in Páirc Uí Chaoimh yesterday, the 2-tiered stand is the south stand and the north stand is the other one. Over on the north stand side of the field, I think it was a Dara Stakelum actually, he caught out for 1 or 2 puck outs, just straight into his hand. But in fairness to him, he was playing into the wind in that first half. And as I was saying, the half-forward line, sun in their eyes, difficult to win the ball. Not an excuse. They should have won more balls than they did. And our puck outs definitely malfunctioned, because in that second quarter, like, it was just like a trampoline hitting the puck out down the field because the ball was coming straight back. So Barry Hogan, we'll go through the game, and then we'll go through like what I think of the what Tip got from the league in general. But Barry Hogan, you couldn't do much really about those goals, and the puck outs are far more to Barry Hogan being at fault than anything else. It's not just Barry Hogan, it's the whole team have to make moves and make runs for the puck outs. And I did see that a lot yesterday, where there was a lot of just statues out in the fields when the puck out was being taken. Now, there's different puck out plays in place, I suppose, where people need to be. Sometimes you make a run, sometimes you don't, I'm sure. So that might just be that. The full back line, we'll start with Robert Doyle. I thought he did fine. He's marking Patrick Horgan, and he's in his first year playing with the Tip senior team. I thought he did fine. Gave away one free that I thought was particularly harsh on the 45. Owen Connolly had a real struggle with Alan Connolly, and I say that because that space that was in front of Alan Connolly, he's so dangerous, and he's always looking to take you on, and he's quick feet, and he's long, and he's fast, and he's a good hurler. So that was a learning curve for Owen Connolly, but I think he's had a really good campaign. He is our full back now for sure. We know that. He's had a really good campaign. Alan Connolly, would give anyone a tough day, but in fairness to Owen Connolly, he stuck at it. And in the second half, we didn't see as much of a threat from Alan Connolly, and I think that will bring on Owen Connolly an awful lot. To have that experience down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. Michael Breen, was on Brian Hayes. Brian Hayes got a point, maybe set up that goal for Darragh Fitzgibbon, but that was just kind of a loose play. But I think Michael Breen had another fine game yesterday, one of Tip's kind of key men this league campaign. He kept his form going. Joe Caesar was replaced at half-time by Shawnee Kennelly. We'll speak about Joe Caesar first. It was just that hand pass to Owen Connolly for that Ethan Toomey goal was just ill-advised, I suppose, and inaccurate hand pass. But I think he's settled into this team, doesn't look out of place at intercounty hurling whatsoever. But that was a big day for him yesterday. He wouldn't have played in those kind of scenarios before 42,000 people, 35,000 probably Cork there. Just a real chaotic energy in the stadium, and that's a great experience for him. And to get that from the league before championship, and I don't just say that about Joel Caesar, but for a lot of these Tip players, to get that experience of that felt like a Munster championship game for the first half of the game, whereas the crowd are up for it, there's a parade around, that's what you want. And to get that experience into the players before the Munster championship, particularly the new lads, is going to be really it's going to be really beneficial for Tip. I just had a bit of grub before I press record. But he was replaced by Shawnee Kennelly. He got 2 nice scores when he came on. We all know Shawnee Kennelly, really tidy player. Obviously, he didn't come on in place of Joe Caesar in terms of on the field. He was pushed up the field. But it was nice to see Shawnee Kennelly get back on the score sheet, because he had that 1-3 against Limerick, and then we didn't see too much from him after that last game against Cork. So it's good to see him back on the field. Ronan Maher, made some unbelievable catches in that second half from puckouts, as Ronan Maher tends to do. And that was what I was saying with, we were letting Cork go short on those puckouts, and then a few times Patrick Collins just launched them long. A few of those landed on Ronan Maher. But it was just, whatever way Tip were set up in the backs, there was a couple of times where Ronan Maher from the puck-out was just isolated with Diarmuid Healy, and Diarmuid Healy is really quick, and it's going to be hard for Ronan Maher to keep up with him. And there was 1 or 2 of those, and there's just way too much space. So whatever way Cork were pulling Tipperary players out of place, it's something for Damien Young and the Tip kind of stats lads to have a look back on, and the Tip management team to what Cork were doing and how we can counteract that. Brian O'Mara on the other side of the field made a few, and Ronan as well in that first half, made a few clearances that went straight to Robert Downey or straight to Kieran Joyce, which was disappointing. But I thought, in fairness to Brian O'Mara, Shane Barrett really tried to test him for pace on a number of occasions. And Brian O'Mara, while he's not as quick as Shane Barrett, his ability, and I've said this before on the podcast, to just time flicks off your hurley, hooks, blocks, he's so good at that. And it's a real useful talent, because a couple of times Shane Barrett took him on, and just as he had the ball in his hand to put it back on his hurley, it was flicked off it. So I thought Brian O'Mara did pretty well. Had a couple of errors though, as I mentioned, those clearances. That time he went to bat the ball down to, I think was it Sam O'Farrell in midfield instead of catching it, and he just kind of batted it out over the sideline. But in fairness to Brian O'Mara, he stuck at it, and I think definitely probably more suited to wing back than cornerback. Number 8, Craig Morgan. I think Craig was probably probably our best player yesterday. Made a few runs up the field, done well while he was in midfield, and then he went to half back in the second half at half time, and he did really well back there, to the point where, I wouldn't be surprised if Craig Morgan actually starts wing back rather than midfield. I think personally I'd probably have him in midfield, because he's a player that can put the other team on the back foot. His speed and his willingness to run forward is something that this Tip team needs, and is something that Craig Morgan can give. And in that second half, Craig broke through and just stead going, got up inside the 14 and went out for a 65. And I mentioned this on commentary. Like, Shane Barrett was running after him and literally just swinging across him 2 or 3 times. Way too far away to even get the ball, just pulling across Craig Morgan, lettered him on the elbow at one stage. And I was like, am I the only one seeing this here? Because how is that not, if it was inside the 14, it could have been a penalty. But, like, I don't know. It was just behind him swinging like this, and that camera angle looks weird. But just swinging, I don't know. Shane Barrett got away with it, went out for a 65. Jason Ford put it over. But Craig Morgan, I thought, really, really good game yesterday. And every time he was on the ball, Tip had a few kind of handling errors and touch errors like that, but Craig Morgan was just crisp. Everything was quick. Everything was into the hand. Sam O'Farrell got 2 points. He was kind of moving around the half-forward line and midfield at different stages. Sam O'Farrell's strength, I think, is his ability to just float into space and know where to be to receive the ball. Like, one of the points he got, the ball broke and it was drilled forward to him, and there was no one within 20 yards. Whatever way, he just snuck out. Really good at that. He can take a score, and he had a couple of chances to take it on for a goal if he wanted, on a number of occasions. But this is a fella who played just Wednesday evening in Páirc Uí Chaoimh and Sunday evening. Quick turnaround. He's playing with the 20s. For the likes of him and Darren McCarthy and the other lads, I hope they get a good rest now until, I know they're playing, who do they play next in the under-20s? Is it Clare? Isn't it Clare and 6 Mile Bridge on April 16th? Like, I hope they get a good rest before that game, and let's see, will they be playing that day, or will Liam Cahill want them for Limerick on that Sunday, April 20th? So let's see, but I hope Sam O'Farrell, Darren McCarthy just get a bit of a rest now to rejuvenate for what's going to be a busy period to come. Alan Tynan up next. As I mentioned, he hit a few disappointing wides. He got that yellow card, which, looking back on the replays at the time, I couldn't really see, but he obviously must have hit Darragh Fitzgibbon. I just literally didn't see it, because when I'm watching the game live up in the commentary position, and I didn't have a TV screen in front of me, but the TG Car lads were down below us, so I had a look in at their screen, and I just missed the replay, and since then I haven't seen it back. So he got yellow carded. Did get a point, hit a few wides that he'd be disappointed with, but again, it's his first game back from that suspension, so we're going to need Alan Tynan at top tilt for this game against Limerick in 2 weeks' time, because he's really important. Willie Connors was the unfortunate one to get substituted when things were going wrong in that first half. In fairness to Willie, I think he's been really good throughout the league. Didn't do a whole pile obviously wrong from my viewpoint. I think maybe something just had to change, and he was the unlucky one to be replaced for Dara Stakelin. But Willie Connors, I would imagine, will be starting midfield come championship. I think he's had a really good league. As I mentioned in podcasts before, I think he's in the best form he has been in for Tipperary. Dara Stakelin come on for him, and in fairness to Dara Stakelin, similarly to Sam O'Farrell, knows where to pop up in places, and in fairness, he's able to win dirty ball. We saw that against Clare the last day. He got 2 points when he came on, and he just probably posed a different threat to Cork that Willie Connors would have. Willie Connors is a worker. He'll do whatever job that has to be done, and he can score as well. In fairness to Willie, I think he's 9 points scored throughout the league. But for Dara Stakelin, I think he's more of a fella that is more attack-minded and will put the Cork defence on the back foot, thinking, right, where's this lad gone? So that might have been the reason for that substitution. Grode O'Connor was 12. He got a point. That was a nice move for his point. Struck it off his left outside the 45. But just struggled to win that primary possession that we need from Grode. He's a big physical fella, but we just really didn't see it from him yesterday. And he had a really good game. I remember down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh 2 years ago against Cork in his kind of debut year. So we'll be hoping Grode now can, like the rest of them, just refresh and get back to best form for the game against Limerick. He was replaced by Dylan Walsh, who just didn't really get on much ball when he came on. There was a couple of balls launched into that full forward line, but nothing really fell Dylan Walsh's way when he came on. Darren McCarthy was number 13, scored 4 points on the day. He was well marshalled over there by Sean O'Donoghue. They were having a right battle. But in fairness to Darren McCarthy, like he'd have to be a little bit tired after that game on Wednesday. I don't think he played particularly bad or anything. He set up a few scores as well, and he's always a threat. It just wasn't. He wasn't as influential as maybe other games, and none of that Tipperary forward line really were. But Darren McCarthy, have to remember that he's 19 years of age, and he's played a lot of hurling in the last couple of days with under 20s as well. So I've no fear whatsoever about Darren McCarthy. He'll be starting against Limerick, and please God, he'll be fit and ready to rock. But he's had an incredible league. I think he scored 248 in the league campaign, his debut league campaign. And his free taking ability is incredible. Like, I think, was it his first free that was out on the sideline on the 21? Really difficult one. No bother to him whatsoever. So I've no fear of Darren McCarthy. I was actually kind of happy to see him come off, just in terms of just give the guy a break kind of thing, more than anything. Andrew Ormond came on for him, worked hard, did get a nice score. Jake Morris, 3 points for him. As I mentioned, I thought he was really good throughout the game, always looking to make something happen. His ability to just gather the ball has really improved, and he was able to get some real difficult 50-50 balls that he came down with. So Jake Morris had a fine game yesterday, and Jason Ford, I thought, played really well. The first score he got out on the sideline on inside the 21 by the 14. That was a scandalous score altogether by Jason Ford, and his stick work and striking is looking really good and really sharp. So 7 points for him yesterday. And that was Tipperary's lot. So looking at Cork then, sure, they had scores everywhere. We had 1-2 for Alan Connolly, 1-4 for Dara Fitzgibbon, 1-2 for Ethan Toomey, 2 points each for Tim O'Mahony, Diarmuid Healy, Shane Barrett, and then a point apiece for Kieran Joyce, Tommy O'Connell, Brian Hayes got a point, and Patrick Horgan got 7. So those were the scores for Cork. All in all, let's just move on from that game. I think Tip, and speaking with Liam Cahill after the game, or being at the press conference while he was speaking, he didn't seem like down and negative. He was looking at the positives, and he was admitting that, look, there is definitely things to work on. But I think he's still confident that they can come down and do something on April 27th, and that they can get something out of this Munster Championship. I think from talking to, or being in that press conference with Liam Cahill, I had a feeling walking out of Páirc Uí Chaoimh that, okay, things aren't as bad maybe as we'd feared. I think he spoke well, spoke honestly as he always does. And yeah, I think he knows that, the league is league and championship is championship, as we've said already, and it's gearing up for that game against Limerick in 2 weeks' time. But I don't think he's going to dwell on this. I don't think the team are going to dwell on it. I'm sure they'll be hurting, but I'd imagine once they get into training on Tuesday evening or Wednesday evening or whatever, that that will be brushed aside, and it will be looking ahead and what they can do. So I don't think yesterday's game, it doesn't have the feeling for me that it's doom and gloom and it's all over and the championship is over and we're going to lose every game. And I think what we all know is the Munster Championship is going to be really hard, but I think Tipper are in a much better position going into this Munster Championship than they were last year, for the reasons I've mentioned earlier. So let's leave the league behind us. Before we do that, just a general oversight of the league. Positives of the league, as I said, we have that settled team. We got 10 new debutants, I think. Will I try and do it off the top of my head? Let's see, we have Robert Doyle anyway, who definitely made his debut this year. Joe Caesar, Sam O'Farrell, that's 3. Dylan Walsh, 4. Darren McCarthy, 5. Michael Corcoran, 6. Conor Martin, 7. Who else? There's more. Oisin O'Donoghue, 8. I had 10 written down. Can I remember? Gavin O'Halloran, 9. Oh, there's someone I'm missing now. Sam O'Farrell, did I say him? Maybe he's the 10th one. That could be the 10th one. I can't remember. But there was 10 debuts for Tipperary in the league campaign this year, and that's a huge positive, of course. I'm trying to think, was there someone else? Maybe there was. But anyway, it's 10 debuts. That's a positive for Tipperary. I mentioned the structure of the team. We know where lads' best positions are. And all in all, playing much better and playing with much more fight, I suppose, than they did last year. So, but that's the league. It's done. It's behind us. We got what we got out of it. Didn't get a league title, but got to a league final. Big experience for the players. That's a huge positive now, because I even noticed that myself from just commentating on these games. The difference in the Munster Championship, the intensity of it, the pace of it, the fever pitch of the crowd, the sold out stadiums, it's so different than the league. So to get as close as you can possibly get to that was what we saw in the first half of the league final yesterday. And to get that into the players was huge. But I have a few more things we want to get through. Let's see if I open this here now, my little document here that I have. So I mentioned everything that I had wanted to mention there. Different feeling from last year. So where are we heading into Munster? I think the Munster Championship, as has been well documented at this stage, is going to be incredibly difficult for Tipperary. We're at home to Limerick first, April 20th. Then the following weekend we're away to Cork. So they're going to be very difficult fixtures. Tip could play really, really well and lose both those games because they're playing brilliant teams. So that's going to be really difficult. If Tip could get anything out of those two games, a point, anything, would be really good. And I wouldn't write this Tipperary team off whatsoever. I think, Limerick are Limerick. We've had our struggles against Limerick in recent years, but when we played in the Munster Championship in Semple Stadium 2 years ago, it was a draw game and Tip had chances to win. So it's not against the realm of possibility that Tip could get something out of that game. And I think that's a game Tip will probably be targeting, because they have a 2-week build up to that game, and they can just go at it. And after that, they have Cork, they could be tired after that game against Limerick or whatever, going into that game against Cork. But you think with the 2-week lead in, they should be fresh going into this game against Limerick. So I think they'll be really targeting to go hammer and tongs at that game, and then just take on Cork the following week and worry about that week. So that's a really difficult start. Then they have the week off. Then the final two games, I think, are really big. It's away to Clare in Ennis on May 10th. 2 years ago in the same venue, Tip got that win with the 5 goals. And that's something that's another massive game, and another one that they can really kind of build up into with the 2 weeks. And then it's Waterford on the final day, and we really do owe Waterford a win, because or we owe them, ourselves, to beat Waterford, because last year we drew with them down in Walsh Park. The year before was that game with Billy Nolan, who was in goals for them yesterday, playing sweeper, and we just didn't push up on him, and they bet us in Semple Stadium, and it was an awful game to even remember. So those are some things that that's the schedule that Tipperary have. So if they can get something from, all I want really is, come that game against Waterford, that Tipperary have something to play for. If they win the game, they either get to a Munster final or they go through. If that was the scenario, that would be brilliant, because we need it. We need a good run in the championship for this Tipperary team, I think, anyway. So that's how I see us for that Munster Championship. And how are we going to line out? That is the next question. So I do have my predicted team down below us here. So the camera angle is a different one today. So right, we'll slowly tease it, as I do want to talk about VAR and stuff in Tipperary and managing young lads. As I mentioned earlier, that game on April 16th against Clare in the Under-20 Championship, 4 days before the Senior Championship. That's up to Brendan Cummins and Liam Cowell how they're going to manage that. But that is something worth mentioning, is that is going to take some managing. But the predicted team for the starting 15, let's just not tease it. That looks terrible. Let me try and get this onto one page if you're not watching. Okay, that's trying to reconnect, so it's not going to be able to connect. So we're just going to have to leave it in this crappy format, broken between 2 pages. But I was just thinking of it earlier. What's the starting 15 going to be against Limerick? I can probably confidently say 12 of these players will start. I think that full back line is fairly nailed on with Barry Hogan in goals. So if you're listening on the podcast, not watching, the starting 15 I've named versus Limerick, or I have predicted, is Barry Hogan in goals, Robert Doyle, Owen Connolly, Michael Breen, half back line of Brian O'Mara, Ronan Maher, Sam O'Farrell, Midfield of Willie Connors and Craig Morgan. Half forward line, Alan Tynan, Jake Morris and Gerard O'Connor. And full forward line of Darragh McCarthy, Jason Ford. And I've put in Dara Stakelum. I think in the last 2 games, he won us the game against Clare, and he showed that he can contribute again against Cork. But that is a very open spot. There probably is a couple of ways that team could move around. Could Sam O'Farrell go to midfield and Craig Morgan drop back? Possibly. Could Sam O'Farrell push to half forward line, or could Noel McGrath come in? Very possible. That Dara Stakelum position, Dylan Walsh will have a claim for that. Noel McGrath could come in and play out the field. Noel McGrath could definitely play. Dylan Walsh, as I mentioned, Shawnee Kennelly could come into that spot. There's a couple of open places there, but I think the back 6 probably, or 1 to 6 anyway, is probably nailed on. And that other wing back position, it's going to be whether it's Sam O'Farrell, whether it's Craig Morgan, or whoever it's going to be. But that's how I see the team lining up, with 1 or 2 changes. But that's the core of the team, and I wouldn't have been able to do that this time last year. So that is, as I said, one of the positives of the league. But what do you think? Do you think Tipperary team might line out a bit differently than what I have down here? It very much could, but let me know what you think as we kind of reach towards the end of this podcast. One thing I want to do to just switch tack, I did mention I have the under-20s and minors written here. The minors had a tough, just narrow 2-point defeat to Clare on Saturday. I think they played pretty well, but they just didn't build up enough of the lead playing in the first half with the breeze. And the second half, Clare had the breeze and got that goal late on. Was it Chris Dunn, young lad from Gurtna, who done really well in that game. But I think there's a few structural things they probably need to just figure out, like where's Ewan Murray's best position for this team, because he's probably needed in a few places on the team, but where can Tip get the most out of him? That's probably something that has to be looked at. The under-20s had a way better performance against Cork, and they got the win there. Paddy McCormick with a really nice goal and some good performances throughout the field. I thought Joe Egan was really good. I thought Conor Martin had a really good game that night as well. So the under-20s going back in the right direction as they play Clare on the 16th, as we've said. So one thing I wanted to mention is VAR in GAA and VAR in hurling. It's something that's crept up. It's kind of weird. It just kind of crept up in the last while, probably because of the high profile cards and decisions that we've seen in the last couple of weeks, going back to Tip and Kilkenny in the league with the red cards and things like that. But I think I'll go out and say it straight away. I'm against VAR in Ireland. I don't think it's necessary at all. I don't think it would solve much. I think it would cause more problems than it would solve. And why do I say that? Well, the problems that people want it there to solve are what things that people see as clear and obvious mistakes. The red card for James Mahon, that was clear and obvious mistake. There's a few other ones that we can go through. And it's often said, someone could just look at a screen, show the referee, and in 60 seconds, that'd be it. That's not what would happen, though. It would be 4 or 5 minutes, referee looking at it, referee going back and forth, and by the end of it, you mightn't even get the right decision, because James Mahon gets a red card for what everyone can see shouldn't have been a red card, straight in front of the linesman, who I'd imagine advised the referee to give the red card. Fair enough. On that occasion, you'd say, right, they'll go back and look at that, and they'll overturn the decision. There's no way that would be a red card if there was VAR. Okay, but after James Mahon gets the red card, they appeal it awfully, and on the appeal, it's still held up as a red card. So how can you guarantee that all the right decisions are going to be made? And if that's what you want, is the right decision to be made, you can't guarantee that VAR would solve that. There is egregious ones where a red card is given and it should be overturned, but I think that's just what we have to put up with. And there's been Tipperary lads sent off in the wrong. Alan Tynan, I was right in front of it. From my view at the time, there was nothing in it. My view hasn't changed on that since actually seen the replays, and that wasn't overturned either. So what can you do? I don't think VAR is necessary in hurling. I don't think it's needed. Where do you draw the line? If a lad takes too many steps for a goal, is that pulled back? And then you see, okay, he took 5 steps, but if every step count was, everyone would be called for overcarrying. every time, every possession, if that was the case. I just don't think it's needed. I don't want to see it in hurling. What games do you use it in? What games do you not? It's going to be another expense, and I just don't think it's necessary, and I don't think you'd get the benefit that people say you would. So that's how I see VAR in hurling. I don't want to see it. Don't think it's necessary. And so that's just my 2 cents on that. But after that, that's pretty much it. Now we won't have a podcast for the next couple of weeks. I'll have to make a I suppose a confession to the listeners of this podcast. I will not be here for the Tipperary versus Limerick game. I'm going away on holidays, so I'm going away there Monday week, so I'll miss the first round game. I will be in Las Vegas when Tipper playing Limerick, and I will be watching it. Maybe I'll do a quick podcast or something, or a quick TikTok or something after the game at about 11 o'clock in the morning. I'd say I think the game is at 4 o'clock Irish time on Easter Sunday. I'll be in Vegas, and I think the match gets underway at like 9 o'clock in the morning. So I'll be up. I'll be watching the game for sure, and maybe we'll do something around the game. I'll do something. But anyway, I won't be here for that game. I'm going away on holidays Monday week, so I'll be kind of out of action. I will be back for the Tip and Cork game on April 27th, all right. But I'll be away, flying over to LA, over to Vegas. Any of the kind of shrewd listeners might be saying, why is he going to Vegas? What's on in Vegas? It's WrestleMania. I'll go out and say it. I'm going to WrestleMania on April 19th and 20th. Bucket list thing, booked the tickets back in October. Was a big wrestling fan when I was younger. Not as much in the last couple of years, but it's just something I want to tick off the bucket list, and that's what you kind of have to do. Like I had that kind of health scare earlier in the year, and you just want to just go out and do the things that you've marked that you want to do someday. So WrestleMania, Las Vegas, myself and herself going out. So it should be a really good week. So really looking forward to that. So I will not be here for Tip versus Limerick, but I will be back for the Tip versus Cork game. So that's what I have. Many thanks. The podcast has been doing really well so far this year. TikTok, we're up to over 2,000 followers. So if you're coming via TikTok, thanks for all that support. And if you can give us a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, almost up to 300 subscribers, which is good going for just a one lad doing a podcast, sitting down in a room talking to himself for half an hour. So that's where we're at the minute. So many thanks for all the support. If you keep the likes and subscriptions going, free to subscribe if you're just watching on YouTube for the first time. It's just, if you subscribe, you get a notification when I upload, and it's just easier to find my videos. So, and it looks good for me. So it goes both ways. So many thanks for tuning in. I'll keep you updated on my travels over in Los Angeles and Las Vegas, and hopefully I'll be absolutely buzzing come around 11 a.m. in Las Vegas on Easter Sunday morning. So enjoy the next couple of weeks. I know I will, and we'll catch up probably after that Tip Limerick game via maybe a quick video, maybe a little quick live podcast. We'll see. But until then, thanks for tuning in, and we'll chat to you again. Good luck.